ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. There is a lot of interest in Jewish identity these days, particularly in light of October 7th and all sorts of related events. We've seen an uptick in anti-Semitism, not only in the United States, but around the world. It's been certainly a bone of contention on college campuses all over the country. And this has been a defining feature of American foreign policy, of discussions going on at the UN, and going into the holiday season. I've noticed some friends of mine, colleagues of mine even, who never really gave much thought into being Jewish. They're now identifying as Jewish and looking to, practice Judaism in a way that maybe they haven't since prior to their bar mitzvah. Someone who I thought would be a great person to talk to about this and a wide variety of other issues affecting Jewish America is Allison Josephs. I've always enjoyed our conversations. Not only is Allison a tremendous writer and activist, she's founder and executive director of something we're going to tell you about momentarily called Jew in the City. Allison, it is great to talk to you again.
Likewise. Glad to be back.
Allison, for people that don't know your story, I think it's such an interesting one. You did not grow up in an Orthodox Jewish household, right? But you made the decision to become Orthodox?
Exactly. Yeah. So I grew up conservative. And I think the way a lot of Jews operate, they have this feeling that what we do is the right amount, what they do is not enough, and what those people do is way too much. So as a conservative Jew, that was how we were raised. And I grew up with a lot of animosity towards the Orthodox community, not because I knew them, but because my father would make disparaging remarks. And most of what I saw in both news media and fictional media about the community let me know that these were bad people. P.S., the way that Orthodox Jews are reported on is not so different from how Israel is reported on. Meanwhile, there's just a lot of bias on both of these topics. There was a triple murder in my public school when I was 8. A father killed both his kids and himself, and this launched me into this 7-year existential crisis, which led me to learn more about the Jewish take on purpose in life and, what we're doing here. And what I found out was that being an Orthodox Jew does not mean you have to be someone crazy. There are a lot of very balanced and thoughtful and nuanced Orthodox Jews across the spectrum of the Orthodox community, but they're never reported on. It's only the crooks, creeps, and extremists that make any news or make any fictional, media. And so as social media was becoming a popular thing in the early 2000s, I saw this as a chance to take back the narrative and explain what my life looked like and what the lives of my peers and colleagues look like, as opposed to relying on mainstream media to tell a simplistic narrative.
Did your father see you become, I don't know of your family situation, I don't know if your dad is still living, but did he live to see you become an Orthodox Jew? And if so, what was his reaction? I'm wondering really, did it further his learning about Orthodox culture?
Yeah, so he did, because I started in high school, and when I was becoming observant in high school, he was very against everything that I was doing. And at all of 16 years old, I challenged him and I said, if you think I'm ruining your life and the life of your unborn grandchildren, then please save me from this cult. But you have no right to an opinion until you learn something. So learn what I learn, meet who I meet, come and celebrate Shabbat where I do, and then you can argue it from the inside out, and maybe I'll listen. And he didn't want to do it, but eventually realized he's going to have to learn some Torah and more about Judaism in order to debate me, and it was really out of spite. And after about a year of Torah study and going away for Shabbos, He came up to me at almost 50 years old, and he said, "You were right and I was wrong, and it's time to play catch-up." And he and my mother and both of my sisters all became Orthodox as well.
Wow.
And my parents have 14 Orthodox grandchildren, 12 of whom live in Israel.
Wow, that's interesting. I'd love to have you on for a whole hour just exploring your remarkable life story. I think it's just so fascinating. If people want to learn more about your writing, they can certainly check out the website for Jew in the City. If you just Google Jew in the City, it is the very first thing that comes up. What is Jew in the City?
Well, when I first started a YouTube channel to try, because I saw a show called Lonely Girl 15 back in 2005. She was a lonely girl who was 15, and she was, people were tuning into her life, and I saw that there was this new medium now that you could tell your story on without relying on NBC to tell your story. And so I thought, okay, we're doing literal titles. Well, what am I? I'm Jewish. I live in the city. I'll become Jew in the City. What the name of our organization, because at first it was a YouTube channel, then it became a nonprofit. What I realize it means now today is that for Jews, for really millennia, we lived as second-class citizens, really since we were exiled from Israel. And in many of the places we lived, it was behind ghetto walls. It was with, anti-Jewish laws. And when we were finally emancipated from the ghetto in the time of Napoleon, we were emancipated with conditions. We were essentially told that you can live and be in Gentile spaces as long as you tamp down on the connection to your land and you tamp down on a connection to your heritage. And by the way, notice those two things that I mentioned earlier that get attacked in media, the Orthodox and the land of Israel, those are the two things that Jews have been under attack on since the beginning. And so it was this conditional emancipation, and Jews of the time of the Enlightenment began saying, be a Jew in the home but not on the street. Cover up that Jewishness. And you alluded to some of your colleagues who have gotten more Jewish suddenly. They were less Jewish because it was sort of beaten into us for millennia that if we're too Jewish, we'll be in trouble. And so the term Jew in the City, what I've come to realize it means is bring your full Jewish identity everywhere you go. Do not relegate that part of yourself into just a private space. And the truth is that we're in this age now where every other minority group is celebrating who they are and what makes them different. And when it comes to Jews, it wasn't until October 7th that a lot of Jews had this wake-up call and said, if I'm going to be hated for this thing, let me find a way to love who I am.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What an empowering message for every ethnic group and even every person beyond identity. All right. You did this really interesting event recently called the Jewish Media Awards. The title of the event may sound self-explanatory, but just explain to folks what exactly this was. What are the Jewish Media Awards? Why did you think this was an important thing to do?
So we have to first back up to a new initiative that started at Jew in the City in 2021. While we were using social media to try to change the narrative about Orthodox Jews, and things were not getting so much better, I was noticing simultaneously that a lot of other minority groups were having better stories told about them in television and film. The stories were anti-stereotypical. So if you take This Is Us, you have the one black character in a white family who is the most academic and the best swimmer. That is going against stereotypes. You take a show like Jack Ryan, and the Muslim guy is not the terrorist. He's fighting terrorists. And by the way, being Muslim isn't a burden. He stops in the middle of the day and has a meaningful moment of prayer. And I'm watching this stuff, and I'm thinking, like, well, this is great for them, but what about the Jews? For the Jews, the stories about Jews continue to be going unorthodox and my unorthodox life and cheap Jews and nagging Jewish mothers. And why is our representation not getting better? Well, what I discovered very accidentally in 2021 is that every other minority group had been formally advocating in Hollywood for decades through something called Hollywood bureaus. So the NAACP Hollywood Bureau was founded 70 years ago. The Muslim PAC Hollywood Bureau was founded over 30 years ago. The LGBTQ community has GLAAD, respectability for the disabled community. Literally every minority category, you name it, they have a group. I never did this for Jews before. And no one ever did it for Jews before, is because everybody will tell you, well, Jews run Hollywood. And the thing is that Jews started Hollywood because they were fleeing persecution from other industries that would not have them. But what they did was when they founded Hollywood, They founded it with that sense of self-judgment, self-erasure, self-loathing. And so their idea of how to fight anti-Semitism was to try to hide who they were and mock who they were. And that's pretty much how Hollywood has been going for the last 100 years. And so we jumped into the ring and into this fight to say we may have more of a predominance in this space and we may have more of a historical connection here, but we have not been doing good to our community. And just like every other group wants to try to avoid these caricatures and the vilification and the tropes, so too we have certain things that bother us that we see over and over again. And we want to see our heroes on the screen. And we want to see whole and human characters. They can be flawed, but being flawed is part of being human. Mm-hmm. They have to have complex storylines. And so the Jewish Media Awards were riffing off the NAACP Image Awards, which have been around for 55 years, the GLAAD Media Awards, which have been around for 35 years. These other groups have all been calling out the bad with studies, with panels, doing showrunner trainings, and then once a year they celebrate the progress being made. And so we're a very tiny organization compared to these huge, well-known organizations, but it's a very Jewish idea to be scrappy and think that you can take on the world. This is what we did. We were the David with Goliath. We were the Maccabees against the Greek army. We were Esther against the Persian Empire. And so it is, if I watch television, I would see that Orthodox women are meek and powerless. But I've looked into my own text, and what I found were strong Jewish heroines who were willing to stand up to the biggest empires in the world. And so I thought, well, we could surely stand up to Hollywood.
Just to give folks an idea of some of the work, whether it's movies or television or whatever else, that did well in terms of representing Jewish media in a favorable light, what were the biggest winners at the Jewish Media Awards?
Yeah, so it was on November 12th at Lincoln Center, Alice Tully Hall. We recognized Jewish matchmaking because since Hollywood's founding, the framework of how Jewish romance has been treated is that essentially Jewish women are almost always passed over for the preferable shiksa goddess. And the recent Netflix show, Nobody Wants This, really is just revisiting that storyline all over again. And so in Jewish matchmaking, it's a really rare show where you see Jewish people falling in love with one another. It's almost never seen. It's a diverse set of Jews, and what they all have in common is that they really love being Jewish. We featured the show Fauda. Surprisingly, Fauda is one of the most popular shows on Netflix in several Arab countries because they show a complex storyline of how both sides are dealing with such a horrific issue. The scene that we featured in our show was at the end of one season when several of the characters appear to be dying. They look up to the heavens and they recite the prayer Shema Yisrael, which is the prayer that Jewish people say as they die. And to see such a powerful moment on Netflix of Jewish people saying the words that our ancestors have said as they've been martyred throughout the millennia was a really powerful moment to get to experience together. There's a film on Amazon about the first Orthodox Jew drafted to the NBA, drafted to the G League. The guy's name is Ryan Terrell, and he's with a bunch of non-Jewish G League players. And you see him the whole time throughout the documentary talking about how proud he is of his faith and how he's uncompromising, that this is who he is and he'll never back down on who he is and what he cares about. It's really rare conviction. We honored Sheryl Sandberg's Screams Before Silence, which we sort of see Sheryl Sandberg as a modern-day Queen Esther, recognizing that she was given this platform to do this work and that maybe everything that she did up until this moment led to this point in her life. It's almost the exact dialogue that happens in the Scroll of Esther in the Megillah. On her own, Sheryl Sandberg utters this in the film. And so what we really did was we recognized a moment within television and film that elevated Jewish values, and we showed a Torah source on the screen before the clip went up to say this is what ultimately unites us. Not all Jews are observant, not all Jews are believing, but we have a unified heritage of where we come from, and we're going to celebrate the beauty and wisdom of the heritage that is our own.
I think that's wonderful that you do that, Allison. That's terrific. If people are just tuning in, my guest is Allison Josephs. If you want to learn more about her, you could check out the website JewInTheCity.com. That's JewInTheCity.com. Allison, while I have you here, I want to pick your brain on a couple of items in the news that I'm sure you'll have some insight or at least a strong opinion on. One is this rabbi that was murdered. There have been 3 Uzbeki nationals arrested by the United Arab Emirates linked to the murder of Rabbi Zvi Kogan. They're saying that this was an act of anti-Semitic terrorism. What can you tell us about this specific incident and where it fits into the broader framework of international anti-Semitic violence?
I mean, I think for me it fits into the broader framework of thousands of years of attacks against Jews. It happens to be that the uncle of this Chabad rabbi that was killed was taken hostage in Mumbai, India, 16 years ago, almost to the day. And the reason that I know that is because I went into labor with my older son when Rabbi Holtzberg and his wife were taken hostage in Mumbai. And by the time I gave birth, they had been murdered by terrorists. And so it's in Jewish tradition, we name our children for the deceased. And so we added the name Gavriel to my son's name so that we could remember Gavriel Holtzberg for being martyred as a Jew 16 years ago. And so to learn that now his nephew, who is also spending his life in service and hospitality and, community efforts, was yet another Jew that was killed this way is definitely terrifying. It's in times like this that, yes, we want strong laws against terrorists, and we want funding cut, and we want, the U.S. to lead with power as opposed to appeasement. And we also got guns since October 7th, but we're also turning to faith right now. We're turning to each other. We're turning to God. We're trying to find more joy and meaning in our tradition because it's a really terrifying way to feel that you grow up hearing about the Holocaust and learning about pogroms and reading about the Spanish Inquisition and thinking like, well, those Jews in the past, boy, did they have it bad, but at least we're past that now. And then one day you're like, but maybe it never actually ended.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor. Powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Yeah, I mean, what an interesting perspective. I mean, obviously, you don't think that Jews, certainly in the United States, for all the discrimination that they may face, they don't have it as bad as the Jews that were facing pogroms in the time that you're talking about, right?
True. Although in Memphis, Tennessee, an Israeli locksmith went to do a job 2 nights ago, right around the time this UAE rabbi was killed, and he was gunned down by his client. A few months ago, a dentist in San Diego had his patient come in, and gunned him down. There was a woman in Detroit who ran an interfaith Jewish Muslim nonprofit who was stabbed in the heart 8 times after October 7th, and they don't know who her murderer is. There was another man, Paul, his last name is escaping me. He was at a rally supporting Israel also a few months ago, bludgeoned over the head with a megaphone and died from his injuries. And the man that did this had a very anti-Israel social media footprint. So, no, it's not the point of Jews being rounded up and raped in the form of pogroms. But in the past, I think it started with, an incident here and a couple incidents there. And obviously we don't want it to go further. And it's really a point where we need our non-Jewish allies to stand with us, stand against this terrorism, and really stand against anything that has supported, normalizing this, whether it's through political actions or what's being done to Jews on campuses. It's a terrifying time right now for Jews around the world.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on internationally. It's looking like we're moving towards a Lebanon ceasefire. It's been very heated, the back and forth between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Looks like there's going to be at least a brief, or who knows how long it'll be, but at least looks like there'll be at least a temporary cessation of hostilities. How do you feel about that?
I mean, if there can be, peace and safety, for us, it's, a ceasefire with terrorists having the ability to, re-empower themselves is not the type of ceasefire we're looking for. A ceasefire in Gaza where the hostages are not released is not the type of ceasefire we're looking for. Obviously, Jewish people pray for peace 3 times a day. Our word for hello and goodbye is peace. For all the ways that we've been smeared as, vicious baby killers, it could be nothing from the truth. We want peace more than anything, but we want a secure peace. We want to know that the bad guys are stopped. And if there's going to be some sort of buffer zone there and there's going to be some outside forces coming in and protecting, that would be amazing. But it can't be a ceasefire that only prolongs or sort of creates the next attack, because we can't keep living in this state of vulnerability. And as the diaspora becomes increasingly dangerous for Jews, we look eastward to say, well, we'll just go to our safe haven. We'll go to our ancestral homeland. And Jews are going to Israel now and returning and moving there in really shocking numbers. If a country would be attacked, you would think people might leave. That's not what happened. You can't even get a flight right now. Jewish people want to go so much. But we want to know that we're going to be safe and that it's a ceasefire that promotes security.
With that in mind, it's interesting. I just saw yesterday that there was a poll commissioned by the French Jewish community that found that 12% of the public thinks it would be good for the country if its Jews emigrated. What do you think the key takeaway from those polling numbers is?
I think there is a long history of anti-Semitism in France. I think that the situation in France is really not so good and not so safe. But I think whoever is answering those polls, you should stand up, unlike the French did in World War II. You should stand up and actually protect your citizens against terrorists and not just bow down and let them have their way.
We saw in Montreal, there was an anti-Israel protest on Friday that turned violent when demonstrators smashed windows, attacked police, burned a dummy of Netanyahu in effigy, and that came a day after someone yelled about the final solution at another Montreal rally. In Toronto, a pro-Palestinian demonstration on Sunday featured someone dressed up as the Hamas leader, Sinwar, in his final moments. Do you think, I'm genuinely not trying to be inflammatory. I'm genuinely trying to be inquisitive. Do you think that violence is more likely to occur at a pro-Palestinian or anti-Israel rally than the garden variety political rally or protest? I
can tell you the difference between the pro-Israel and the anti-Israel rallies. The pro-Israel rallies were singing songs of peace and brotherhood. The anti-Israel rallies, and we had one come to my block a couple weeks ago, and they're literally screaming about, globalize the Antifada, and with their blowhorns and their drums, they're screaming chants of violence and genocide. That does not exist at most rallies, and I think we need to be very clear about the messaging behind the people that are organizing and showing up to these things. This is not about a piece of land. This is about genocidal wish to, end the Jewish people. And we have to take the people that march like this and say these things for their word because, the evidence shows that some of them are actually going through with attempting to globalize the Antifada.
Give us a preview. I know you have this study that you're going to be releasing in December. Give us a little bit of a preview of what we can expect to learn from what you're working on now.
So one of the ways that the other groups have worked to convince the studios to make positive changes is by showing with data that there's a problem. And when we began to meet with studios, some of the first questions we got were, well, do you have any data to back up what you're saying? And we were instructed early on by our peer groups to go to, a leading group within the academic entertainment world. It's the Norman Lear Center at USC. We've measured television characters in scripted US TV from 2021 to 2022. And one of the findings that we can talk about, sort of as a preview to the study, is that only 18% of the Jewish characters, and we studied over 100 Jewish characters, only 18% of them even reference being Jewish, which to us seems like a lot of them aren't really talking about it so much. It's that very thing that we started our conversation with, that Jews are kind of a little bit in hiding. And when they did discuss their Jewishness, it was never really with shame, but it also wasn't really with pride. And so that's a really important finding for us but we're going to go to the studios now and say, we would like to see more proud Jewish characters. We don't want to see, the lines written in a way that feels clunky and not appropriate, but let's find ways to weave in storylines where they can talk about their identity, just like I'm doing right now,
right?
Because I'm really proud of who I am. Let's find ways to weave into their dialogue opportunities to share what their culture is about, what their history is about, why it means something to them. Again, it's that feeling of if we're going to be so hated for being Jewish, we have to find a way to feel that love. And Hollywood content reaches 85% of the world. And so in this mode now where we're wondering what can we possibly do to stem the tide, we feel really hopeful about making a meaningful change in television and film because impact studies show that what people see on the screen affects what they think. And so if we can show more whole and human Jewish characters and more characters that take pride in who they are, we're hoping that that's going to have reverberations for how Jews see themselves and how the world at large sees us too.
Lastly, Allison, and it's always such a treat to talk with you. I look forward to our next conversation, but I read an article in the religious news service yesterday that apparently Yiddish news is enjoying a renaissance. There are all these Yiddish news sources that are thriving, primarily, obviously, in the Orthodox Jewish community, but apparently print is still king in the Orthodox Jewish community. Why is that the case, Allison? Why is print seeming to struggle everywhere else? Newspapers going out of business, even big papers like the New Jersey Star-Ledger, and yet in the Orthodox Jewish community, print is still doing very well. Why is that?
One word, Shabbos. We have one day a week that we shut down our devices, our electronics. And we go back to the basics with books and newspaper and magazines and actual conversations with family and friends where we look into each other's eyes as opposed to looking down at our screen. And we bake bread and we have candlelit dinners. And so it seems like the world is doing away with, printed publications. But for as long as Orthodox Jews and Sabbath observant Jews can continue to subscribe to them, we will, because it is such a treat for me to wake up on Saturday morning, on Shabbos morning, with a cup of coffee and arugula, and my husband brings in the Wall Street Journal, and we get to read the news on a hard copy of paper. And it's usually not great news, but we find other things to be thankful for,
Wonderful.
even in the middle of this all.
Wonderful. Allison, thank you for this. Have a great Thanksgiving. I'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
And you as well.
If people want to learn more about Allison Josephs and her work, you can go to the website jewinthecity.com. If you want to give me a call with any reaction to what Allison and I just discussed, you can certainly do so at 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.